Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Chris with InsideTheU. Just wrapped up day 13 of preseason practices here at UM. No viewing period today, but we're able to get some good information from both coordinators, Shannon Dawson about the offense, Corey Heatherman about the defense, and I want to get into some other notes later in the video. But just first off with the offense, and Coach Dawson was talking about, and this should excite Miami fans, he does feel like this team has shown big playability downfield, the big play throws out of the passing game. In particular with Darian Mensah, he said that he throws a good deep ball, and that's definitely a good sign. And I believe they've got the wide receivers that can get downfield on the perimeter to make the big play. So that's a good sign, and good to hear that. You always want that in an offense. And Coach Dawson also mentioned one of the keys to being able to throw the ball downfield, to have that big playability, is you've got to have a running game. And when you think about it, that obviously makes sense because you want to keep the opposing defenses honest, and that's what they want with this whole offense. It's what they've always wanted under Coach Dawson, this balanced attack. They want to be able to run the ball as well as throw it, either whether it's short, intermediate, or deep, but they want to have that running game on top of it. So, and he did say, and it's obvious too, said that this is a very talented group, a loaded group of running backs. So certainly they feel really good about the backfield there with whoever they put out there. But to have the good running backs, that really helps the ability to throw the ball deep. And he also said too, you have to pick and choose the right moments to throw the ball deep, and that makes sense. You can't just throw it deep all the time hoping for the big shot. You've got to get first downs and keep the defense off the field. You've got to be able to extend drives and things like that, and I think they've done a good job under Coach Dawson, regardless of who's been at quarterback, kind of mixing in the deep ball and trying to connect on big plays, try to be aggressive while also understanding what's important in that particular moment, in that particular drive, the way that the game shakes out. So that's good to hear. He also said too, I asked him about the tight ends because I'm fascinated about the tight ends, and because I think there's so much that goes into it, and it's not just the production. And I know there might be times I harp on the production of the tight end, but there's just so much of in this offense, so the way Dawson wants to run it, that they're going to be out there. They've got to run the right routes. They've got to be able to block, and he's encouraged by what he's seen from the group, not just Elijah Lofton, but the group in general, and feels like, obviously you'd want guys to be able to do everything at that position, but sometimes it doesn't work like that. So maybe you've got your guys that are better at blocking or better receiving, whether they're coming off the line of scrimmage, alongside the offensive line, or if they're split out wide a little bit more. But he likes what he sees in the tight ends. He said too, mentality is big and being able to block, but he has seen some signs. It kind of goes, maybe not the big play ability that I was talking about earlier, but he has seen these guys kind of make catches down the field at the tight end spot, and he feels like that's a great place to start with the tight end and their abilities, and so that's good. So maybe some seam routes, Darian hitting them over the middle based on their progressions, obviously, but and making the correct reads, either linebackers or safeties, whatever it might be. But so there are some encouraging signs there, and obviously the bulk and the workload is going to go to Elijah Lofton, and we'll see how he handles it. I think certainly being back another year in terms of having a lead role, I think he obviously understands what's at stake, but just being able to use them, and even if they're not throwing the ball directly to him, as long as he's in the right spot and being an option, being a threat, I think is very important for all those guys out there, in addition to the things that Coach Dawson said, whether it's being able to extend plays with down the field at the tight end spot, or staying and blocking, being good blockers. But I just think in the offense, the tight end is certainly going to be a big factor, regardless of if all the receptions and yards and touchdowns are there or not. A few other notes with the offense, with Coach Dawson, the offensive line, he did say that he feels like they're getting closer. Obviously he knows the season is right around the corner in terms of making a decision with that top unit. He did say a couple positions. He said a couple positions are tight, and when I hear that, I think about the guard positions with whatever they're going to do there. I think it's going to be very interesting, how everything's going to shake out with the guards and the tackles. I've said this all along, and kind of if they're going to put Sampson and McCoy at the tackle spots, which I expect at this point, will they be able to handle the foot speed off the edges? Will they be able to defend, the rushers there, regardless if they're in tight splits or not? I think that's going to be important for those guys, and kind of transitioning from being inside guys. So we'll see how it plays out. I think their play is just as important of who fills in at guard. in terms of the overall production of the offensive line. And maybe it's going to be a little bit different than what we've seen in years past. Maybe it's going to be a work in progress. They're going to go with a certain group, see how it goes, and kind of see how things progress throughout the season. But certainly I'm expecting Sampson and McCoy to get at least the first crack to start the season as the tackles there. And then flipping it to the defensive side of the ball, but sticking with the same topic in terms of pass rushers off the edge. And I'm talking about Damon Wilson in particular. And, I've talked about Damon, and this is just, he's going to have to make that adjustment and improvement in stopping the run, which I've talked about in the past. But another thing, that aspect of his game that I'd like to see him take another step with is being able to pass rush, not just off the outside, not just beating the tackles off to the outside, which when you watch his highlights at Missouri last year, he did a great job of that. And a lot of his sacks came with that speed off the edge, going to the outside and getting by the tackles, but also being able to have pass rushing moves to the inside to beat a tackle or splitting the guard and tackle, whatever it might be. I think that will be big too, kind of another aspect of his game I think he could kind of improve on. I think just with Damon in general, and he's kind of addressed this, just being that all-around defensive end. And certainly we've seen flashes of that in previous years, and we've seen it out here as well when we've been able to watch. So but looking forward to seeing him. Coach Heatherman talked about Damon, feels like he's making progress, as well as the other defensive ends. And Coach Heatherman also said the linebackers are making good progress as well. And he also said too, this is a group that he works with, the linebackers there at practice primarily, but he said, he's really excited about this group in general. So that's encouraging. I think the linebackers is obviously a big part of this defense, of any defense. And I think sometimes maybe here, or maybe the way I've talked about it, almost a little overlooked about the importance of a quality linebacker. We talk so much about pass rushing off the edge, which Miami was great at with Ruben Bain and Mesidor and guys they've had before them, or the importance of having strong defensive tackles and the excitement of the guys in the secondary. This group that they have now, being able to play press man quite a bit, and with that physicality and size, or the playmakers that we've seen in the secondary. But the linebackers, going back to the linebackers, I just think it's such an important group for this defense. And it's not just about making all the tackles, but it's obviously being in the right positions, really forcing offenses into certain plays or taking away certain plays. And that could just be the short routes, or it doesn't matter if they're in man or if they're sitting in zone, or taking away a tight end, whatever it might be, or a lot of pre-snap stuff that you can kind of take away with the linebackers of how they line up. I think it's such a big thing. And I know it seems simple of just making sure your linebackers line up in the right spots, but I just think about the impact quality linebackers can make. And hopefully, we see that quality linebackers, and really the two of them, whoever's out there, obviously expecting Chase Smith being alongside Muhammad Toure, and with Muhammad out there, with his experience and his production, especially stopping the run, tackling and things like that. That's a great place to start with having a quality group at linebacker. And Chase Smith, he spoke recently to the reporters. When he has been speaking, he certainly is excited about this opportunity back again for another year. He's never had this role or this expectation placed upon him in terms of having a large role. So we'll see how he does with it. But again, Coach Heatherman is excited about that group. And then just to finally, a few quick notes on the team that I'd like to address real quick. Spoke with long snapper Adam Booker the other day, who I've been told is a really good, kind of sneaky good basketball player on the team. He actually kind of deferred to Judd Anderson as a quality basketball player. But one thing that Adam was telling me about long snapping, if you're into all the little things about everything to do with the game, he was breaking down essentially the difference between snapping for a punter and snapping to lining up for an extra point or field goal. And he said essentially it's the same snap for him. He feels like it's very similar. It's the same. The biggest thing is the point of where he's trying to snap the ball to. Obviously, the punter, it's coming up differently to their hands. The punter standing back there, and whereas when you're snapping to a holder, the holder has different spots. But as long as they essentially provide a good target, a big target, which can change depending on the kicker, where the kicker likes it. But Adam just said that he's definitely paying attention to snapping to the point, as opposed to really changing a whole lot with the snap itself. So that's something I want to add. Also, just kind of seeing it to my right here, the weight room. A lot of people have been asking about that, and everybody wants to see inside the facility, and I understand it. Trust me, I'll post it when I can about how everything looks inside. But I was told the other day the weight room might take some time. I didn't really get a timetable, but just might get take some time to be fully completed. I'll provide updates when I can, but I just want to pass that on, that it might be a little bit for the weight room to be completed. There are weights in there, but again, they got to do all the branding and everything and kind of just make sure everything's good to go there. And then just lastly, thinking about the other day, Miami starts its seasons at September 4th, Friday night at Stanford. It's really coming up quick, not too many days away now. But the thing I was looking at when you think about the schedule, and there's week 0 games, but 7 ACC teams will be playing before Miami's first game. So you will get a chance, I will get a chance to watch all these other teams, a lot of other ACC teams in action. And one of those teams that you can see before Miami plays is Stanford. They actually play Hawaii before they play Miami. And I think Hawaii is one of those kind of a sneaky, I don't know how under the radar, but I think they can definitely win the Mountain West there. So that's going to be a good test, a tough test, I think, for Stanford to win that one. I like what Hawaii has there. It kind of brings them back, or brings everybody back to maybe those Colt Brennan days when we'd all watch Hawaii football late night. But and Timmy Chang, obviously the coach. But anyways, that's going to wrap everything up for me. They're going to have a scrimmage on Friday. I'm not expecting to be able to be out here the next few days, but if I am, I'll definitely post a recap as always. I appreciate you watching these videos. Have a good rest of the day and take care.